first pit stop of the day, and I'm thinking now is a better time as any to share my story. I've seriously lost track of time now, but there was a time I feel not too long ago that everything I had was perfectly inventoried. Before the end of the world happened, I was a mechanic, right? I had a simple mechanic. I laugh at it now, but back then there was nothing special about my job. Skilled guys were considered a dime a dozen. I mean, between my shop and my own house, there were 7 mechanics, varying skill levels, from guys that just turned wrenches to these big chain stores that repaired whatever, and that if they were known for it, that's what they repaired. It was a job, and everybody had one, I guess. I think my wife called it mundane. She didn't like boring. Well, now my skills are a water fountain in the desert, and I certainly don't lead a boring life today, and honestly, sometimes I do wish I could go back. So when I started, your dad told you, get an education, go to college, be something in your life. But nobody tells you what that is. What is making something of your life? Is it a fast car, a big house, a busty trophy wife that kicks out 2.5 kids? If you don't get that, are you a failure? I mean, I think I knew back then that none of that was true, so instead of burying myself in debt, I picked up a wrench and I just kept moving. My father loved setting these rules, and I felt he was keeping me in a box, and I didn't want to sit in that box. I wanted to wrench my way out. And I don't think that ever made him happy. But I do think he wanted to see me succeed. Well, I opened a repair shop, and I started a career turning wrenches. I think about it now as making sure folks got to work, that the world ran because I was there, but back then I just thought of it as a job. It was a weekly paycheck. I was full of anger. I think I was trying to outrun my dad. Maybe that's why I started building fast cars and going to racetracks. I was always trying to outrun something. And I'd prefer it on a track than, say, diving in a bottle. I guess I was doing a pretty good job at it, too. It was easy to say, can't talk, I'm busy, when anybody would try to push their way into my life. It all ended when the dead started coming back. I suddenly couldn't go fast anymore, and I felt it. Locked up in your house, just not a way for a person to live. And even when they told us to quarantine, I still got up every day at 5, come to my shop and just build whatever. When folks couldn't get anybody else to work, I would put in the work. I would fix stuff. And I don't think they still appreciated it. I was still to them a dime a dozen. But things were changing. And for me, it all changed when the National Guard rolled in. Checkpoints, roadblocks, everything in between. People couldn't get stuff out or in. My other real natural ability, I might add, is reading maps. I don't know why my mind acts like a GPS, like I'm finding my way out of a maze. And maybe it's why I'm so good at fixing cars. I see the destination. One guy shows up, and he was in a suit, has a briefcase, and you think normally this was a powerful guy that could get things done. But here he was begging me for help. Wouldn't stop talking. Something about he couldn't get out of the city, and he needed somebody that could get past all these roadblocks and checkpoints. And I mean, he didn't look sick, but I figured he was checking on his family. At first, I gave him the excuse I was married, I had a family to look after, but But then he offered to pay me, and it wasn't a short sum to be sure. I told him to give me a day to think about it, and I went home, told Emma, my wife, what this guy did, and she said if I was cooped up in the house, I'd go crazy. She told me to go. She said do it because it's what made me who I was. So I took the job. It wasn't easy, by the way. My race cars definitely wouldn't work for this job. They weren't passenger friendly, and the suspension was way too hard. We had places that were going to be off-road, so I needed to find something that was perfect. And I couldn't spend a month swapping out engines that were made to be fixed after every use either. I needed something for a long haul. I needed something that would just kind of get up and go. And all I had that really fit that bill was an old 89 Trans Am, and it was the only thing running either, so that really made it the perfect car. It was making good power. I had swapped the motor and the suspension, would definitely do the job. It was also primer black, so it seemed to be just calling my name. It was literally the perfect car. And the back roads were unfriendly, and dodging stuff was tricky, but hey, we pulled it off. At that point, word of mouth is word of mouth, and my phone didn't really stop ringing. Word that somebody was transporting stuff across enemy lines became kind of big news. So I started taking on more and more jobs here and there just to kind of get myself out of the house. It became less about pay and more in gasoline, parts, things like generators, rations, anything to basically keep me going so that I could, do the next job. The only bad thing was Emma was a homebody. She never really went anywhere. If there was ever a yin to my yang, it was her. You could set a clock to her, though. She bounced back from everything, but she didn't want to leave the house. This was her home, and to her, that was hers, and she wasn't willing to give it up. So I stayed close to home. It also meant some jobs I could do, but I was okay with that. I was just bummed for her when I would be gone for like a day or so. Well, that all changed when I came home one day. I thought she left. The door was open, car was gone. I went inside and found a trail of blood. I ran back outside and I looked around. There, right inside the woods, was the car. She had been attacked by those things, but she was able to escape. She must have made it to the car, tried to drive away, but she lost so much blood she didn't get far. And the car rolled down the hill into a tree, and that's where it stopped. I ran up to the car, and there she was, still strapped in the seat. But now she wasn't Emma anymore. She was something else. I think I sat there looking into that car crying for hours. I punched the door, I kicked fenders, but nothing I was going to ever do was going to bring her back. All my power to fix things, to bring things back to life. It didn't mean anything here. This was, I considered my fault. Had I been there, everything would have been different. I was looking at my anchor, and I had left her drifting out in the ether. And this was the result. Some sort of punishment. If I just stopped running for 1 second, I would have seen the beauty I had right in front of me. It took everything I had to shoot her in the head, but she was getting a proper burial one way or the other. I put out that old oak tree where she loved to paint. That's where she stayed. Once that was done, there was really nothing keeping me there anymore, and I didn't want to be there anymore either. And yeah, I started running again. Running away from my problems, my regrets, even maybe trying to run for myself. I got in that car and I started driving. But I said to hell with the back roads. I went straight through the roadblocks, through the National Guard, through the infected. Anything that got in my way, I was going through it. I hit so many infected, I think I lost count. By the time I ran out of fuel, I was almost in Texas. The car was toast. I left it behind and I started looking for something better. I ran up on something that not many would consider a good car, but something that just said, this is it. The place was a museum, or at least it was before. If you didn't know what you were looking at, you probably never even considered it. But it was an old BMW. It looked to be around like 1980s, and it was built for performance, and it was really good condition. I made a bunch of changes. I added the roof rack and some other things, and I thought, this is the car. This is the one that's going to get me to where I want to go, because that was the point, was to escape, even though I don't think I would have ever stopped running if I had the chance. I thought my days of delivering stuff was over, but apparently the legend of the Ghost Rider that drove all over the roadblocks and made it through had become something of an urban legend pretty fast. So by the time I'd repaired that old BMW, it was, a story that everybody knew. I'd go to some place, I'd hear about it, and it was a little difficult to prove that the Trans Am driver and the same guy driving this BMW was the same guy. But the point was, they needed someone that could face the perils of the road more than they could afford to ignore the story. So if you needed something, there was a guy that could drive through the broken down cars and the blown out roads, and he could get it for you. And I guess I was the guy. I even got the moniker Mad Max, and even though my name is Stan, which is a boring name, I know. So I let them call me Max. The crazy thing is I never heard anyone else that did what I did. So even the people that weren't fond of me blowing through their roadblocks didn't care much, because they needed me to deliver stuff because I had done it. They needed the stuff that they couldn't deliver, and they needed it delivered fast. So I was suddenly important. Everybody needed me. And now I'm in a network. I guess these militia guys had put stuff together and got organized. They even stockpiled gas that they were more than welcome to give to me at any opportunity I wanted. Anything to keep me moving and delivering was what they wanted. And I never had a problem getting food from farms to whatever. These same guys, they had gotten it over and over again. These farmers had helped them, and I was just part of this new thing, and in some idea even more important, because I was getting them stuff. If people had tires or parts, they just donate them. And I was the only guy to go into places like Virginia to get stuff and bring it back, or deliver it to a family member, or do basically wellness runs to make sure people had made it out, or see how family members were. I did it all, and I don't think I ever said no to anything. I think the most unfortunate thing was that I was only one guy, that I was hoping to have like a network of people that would do these runs, or at least thought that that's what was happening, and it wasn't. It was just me. For the most part, things weren't that dangerous. I mean, you'd think going through this that you'd be risking your life at every moment, and I guess effectively I was, but I really didn't think about it. Even with a loud car, you just need to know how to disappear off a road, or to avoid the stinkers. Regular people were generally wary, but they're all friendly. They knew the story. They knew who I was. They knew I could get them stuff, and I did. One guy isn't a threat. You'd think people would want your car, but nobody knows how to fix these things. They're just basically useless unless they're a tractor or can carry things, and this didn't look like any of that. They weren't looking to escape anywhere. Sure, there were people to worry about. You'd have roving gangs, etc., but you just kind of figure out where they are and avoid those areas. They weren't really very well organized, and most of them kind of ate their own. I mean, they're looking for bigger fish than me anyway. In all my time, I never woke up surrounded by stinkers, and I only had one tire that I'm aware of shot out, and I'm not even sure that was from being shot out. I did have a tree dropped across the road once, but I got ahead of that trick pretty fast. You gotta be a little bit faster when you're going up against a fast car. and I've never driven to Denver or Chicago though, and I've heard those places are really bad, but again, nobody really asked me to go there, so I would think that that's pretty much part of the idea that nobody made it out. I don't know, but at the end of it all, I knew pretty much everybody. I knew where a lot of the survivors were, where people didn't want to be saved, and sometimes keeping secrets, and with dropping off supplies to remote farms and all that. There was nobody that didn't like me, or at least didn't want to cause me harm. I've become kind of a constant in the universe, like the sun coming up, or, you know, a moon cycle, and I gotta say, it got pretty cool. So, everything really, for me, came down to one really big mission. It was kind of the mission that really solidified everything for me, and it was a military mission. See, these guys in the military, they're pushing back, and there's a bunch of these teams that are going out to rescue people. That was the first kind of push, and I saw a bunch of those saying that they were moving to the oil fields, so there was a whole different group that was trying to secure Texas. And I mean, obviously fuel becomes a problem eventually, no matter who you are, so I was okay with that in my book, and I'm fully ready to support it. And I knew very well that those areas were infested, so I didn't really know how much of my skill set would have worked there. But and I thought they had the worst job possible. That is until they called me. You see, Texas isn't really a place you want for oil. It's actually off the coast of Louisiana. The problem is nobody knew how bad that place was, or what they would find once they went there, or what was there offshore. So they needed, I guess, base of operations per se. I mean, it could be crawling with stinkers, or it could be a walk in the park. So my job, as easy as it was to go check on the place and do some recon. And as jobs go, it kind of doesn't get any easier than that. So I, as usual, took the job. I never say no. And it did come with a lot of perks. So basically, I could go anywhere. I could get an official military pass, so I was effectively in the Army at that point, and I get a laundry list of jobs that I can pick and choose, and to go with that is free supplies, parts, first dibs on any cars. Nobody wanted a regular vehicle. They all wanted these military things, so it was all mine if I wanted it. And I may be crazy, but the point I know is that someday I will have to settle down, and being able to scope out areas, have vehicles, basically that makes you the king of the roost. You know, you have everything that everybody is going to eventually want when things come back together. So I took off, and I made it pretty far. I was deep into Louisiana. I was really close to that southern border, and it was pretty bad too. Some areas had stinkers walking in the street, so the goal was basically hoof it through as fast as you can. I got to the seafront and thought I'd break into one of the main oil offices to get all the records, and now that I look back at it, it was really a stupid idea. I should have just taken the stuff that I got the information I had, and just left so that better soldiers and folks could move in to figure it all out. I think it would have happened no matter what I did. But I got the fence closed, I locked it, but it wasn't going to hold back a horde of stinkers. If you're wondering why I'm saying the word stinker, some of you might not know that stinkers are the ones that have gone really bad. Their skin turns a black necrotic, so they're basically pitch black. They're very thin, and they're so thin their clothes fall off, and they just look awful. On top of it, they have a rancid smell that you cannot get out of anything that they touch. They basically just turn anything just rot if they come in contact with it. And those are the ones you really want to avoid, because I'm guessing that they're very infectious. But anyway, in those city areas, you guys don't get as many many of those I've heard, but around here, yeah, there's a lot of them, and they look awful. So, needless to say, I did get the paperwork, but by the time I got back to the car, they were all over the fences. There was no way I was getting through it. And I radioed back to the guys in hope that somebody could hear me and let them know where I was and that I was trapped. And I had little hope that that broadcast went through in any way. I pulled as much supplies as I could out of the car, and I used it to block the door of the building so I could fall back and stay in the main building as long as I could. Thankfully, there was only one side for them to get in, but really the ocean was my only way out, and I drove a car, not a boat. So I didn't even see any boats, so there's no way I'm getting out of that, and I'm certainly not swimming. So, for the most part, I was stuck for good. And I was probably there about a month, and running out of food and water faster than I wanted to admit. What I didn't know is that a farmer had picked up my broadcast and had sent info back through a network of folks and families, and they had said that Max was stuck and needed help and that they better send it. Well, that put them all into action. That was when something really cool happened. Everybody wanted to be involved. People who normally would never leave their houses started heading to my location. Just as I started looking at supplies and thinking what was next, that this was it, I'm done, I start hearing gunshots and this crazy noise like a giant tractor. I was expecting something out of that movie with the guy that has the plates over the tractor, and no, they had somehow gotten their hands on a damn tank. These psychos had stolen a tank, and it looked like it was some World War II reject. The gun didn't fire or any of that, so they must have gotten it from a museum, and they were proceeding to muzzle their way through this horde. They just obliterated what was left of the fence and blocked off the space so they could pick up these things off like they were fish in a barrel, just popping away at them. I've never been so happy to see a group like this in my life. It took you a while to get even used to what was happening, but thankfully they were good enough to get the tank back from the street before it basically started chucking black smoke, which isn't good. But we were all headed out back together. A couple of guys had trucks and other vehicles, and they were sputtering from old gas and little use. Nobody had really tuned any of them up or fixed them, but they were working, so we did that, and we left the tank and headed out of the area with mission success, with a busted up BMW and a bunch of broken, sputtering trucks. I heard the next day they had secured the oil fields and began making God's honest gas again. It was great, and it was crazy. I was even told I was getting whatever I wanted of it, and that thanks to the information that we given, Louisiana was next. And due to all that paperwork I'd grabbed, they knew where all those offshore drilling areas were, and what the manpower was like, what it took to get to them, and actually there was a lot less work that they needed to do than they realized. I guess they even had people that were able to work on them. So we were kind of heroes to the future, and nobody let me forget it. So what did I do after the time after that? Well, I loaded up the car with gas and proceeded to go back to all the farms that I had helped me and fixed all their broken down vehicles. It was a lot of fun. Got them back up and running, so now they have trucks and obviously some tractors and other machines to keep their fields fixed. If they were going to come help me in the future, I needed them driving something respectable. That's just how it is. If you're going to come rescue me, I need you in a good truck, or at least something that's not sputtering. How's that? So, funny enough, for the most part, I have settled down, but I never found that dream house that I wanted. Don't feel bad though, because because now I have a bunch of homes I stay at. I drive supplies that need to get to places fast. It's different kind of supplies now than it used to be, and I'm hearing the medical stuff is on the work, so that'll be my next exciting journey. Each place I deliver to has a nice bed for me to stay and an awesome family to eat with, and yeah, and I did find another girl. Her name's Isabel, and she's my door gunner. She loves this journey stuff just as much as I do, maybe more. I even went back to visit Emma to get her blessing, and I think this is what she would have wanted. The crazy thing is I finally figured out what it is to make something of your life. It's to be the light in the darkness, to succeed where others fail, to think outside the box, and to stand when others fall, and then help them up. Your success in life is measured by how much you've guided others, and yet you may not see it until you're lost on the highway somewhere. People come looking for you, but those people that came are the people that mean something, and even if it's one person, don't ever let them forget how much you appreciated it. I guess people didn't want me to be missed, and that's why I'm still here today. So I guess, Dad, after all you said, I succeeded after all. So I'm headed back on the road. So if you see this and you get a good listen, it's a story you can take with you. Share it out with others. If you can't, I hope you have a good one. Oh, and yeah, I'm not running anymore. The road is my home, and it always will be. When you see somebody that doesn't stop, is always moving, and they're out there in the wasteland facing adversity that you can't even imagine, just remember, not all that wander are lost.